What's going on, y'all? Levon Markham Ketchum here. Very exciting day. We finally got our Kraken LiveScope brackets. Ever since this trolling motor's been announced, this is what I've been looking forward to. This weekend we got 2 of them installed, one on my boat, one on a customer's boat, and then a third customer came over to the shop and picked one up today. So that was really nice to see. I think you guys are gonna like the final product. It's not perfect. I think it can be perfect. Needs some aftermarket support, which is like most things, but we'll get to that in the video. But wanted to put together a little install video because it was a little overwhelming when you first open the box up and see all the parts and trinkets and you're tearing apart a trolling motor. I didn't really want to do it myself, and I do this stuff every day. So enjoy the install video. Shoot me a message if you have any questions. And first thing you're going to do is remove the 4 Phillips screws from the bottom of the head unit. These are just a Phillips. Next, you will be removing all the connectors in order to stuff the wires down through the trolling motor shaft. Connectors come right out, set aside so you don't trip over it. Disconnect transducer wires. This was the wire on the back of the head unit. You'll be cutting this zip tie and this zip tie. After cutting the zip ties, slide the protective boot off to reveal the Allen screws that hold the wire going down to the head of the trolling motor. Do this for both the positive and the negative. Using the Allen wrench provided in the kit, 2.5 millimeters, remove all 4 set screws just enough to get the wires out. This is the wires removed from their male and female adapter. Set the protective covers off to the side so they don't get lodged down in the shaft, and you have to figure out how to get them out. Adjust your depth collar to a comfortable working height and deploy the trolling motor. Once deployed, you'll see the 6 screws on the top of the trolling motor. What I'm choosing to do is remove the back 3 that sit on the bottom of the cradle. And then I'm going to put it back in the stowed position and remove these ones. That way, as I'm removing this, I'm not relying on myself to catch the trolling motor head with transducer. Keep track of the bolts as you take them out, as all 3 are different lengths. Shortest, longest, middle. Hopefully you're watching the full video before you just go step by step, because at this point you're realizing, oh crap, I can't get an Allen in there. So take this one out before you restow it. You still are supported by 2 screws, which is more than enough. After moving the trolling motor around a couple times, what I ended up doing was just running a roll of tape around the trolling motor shaft with about 12 inches of it deployed. That way it would still stay stowed and you had more room to work. Next, when you get all the screws out, or bolts out rather, hopefully you've got a buddy helping you install this, but if you don't, find a way to support the trolling motor head. This reveals the gasket that needs to be replaced, and also get the tool for removing all of the transducer plugs. You got one here where we're about to take off for the LiveScope itself, and then you've got this one for the GT56 if your transducer has the GT56 on it. If you do not have the transducer, you will not have this step. Take note when you're removing these. They're not in there that tight, so you don't need to He-Man them. They have an O-ring for a reason. The O-ring seal, not the threads. Snug, snug. You'll notice when removing the big one, it's got a solid rubber gasket in there. Inside the kit, get ones with holes for the transducer to go through. I'm not going to reference this again, I'm just showing all the plugs that are included in the kit. To get the transducer cable to start coming out, use your finger to push the existing watertight seal out the bottom of the housing. That'll allow the cable to freely come through there. States in the directions, make sure you're pulling on the cables, not on the trolling motor head itself. Once you've ensured all heads are clear at the top of the trolling motor, Begin slowly removing them. Not much for it to get caught on, but you'll want to take your time. It is coming very, very freely. Now, you will grab the transducer cable and feed that through. That will free up the complete trolling motor head. Another skip ahead moment. Before you start pulling through the bracket, make sure you take off these little adapters that is preventing it from going through. Small flathead screwdriver pops them right off. Probably not going to focus the best. Next, take your perfectly good LiveScope connector and cut it in half. Little tip, if you put your side cutters in the alignment pin, you can get it in one good crack. Otherwise, you got to nibble at it. From this grommet, disconnect the rubber blocker from the little nut. You'll then grab the one that is the same size for the LiveScope and replace it. So the first thing you're going to do is grab that nut that we just had, making sure to orientate it correctly. Threads in and let that slide down. You'll then feed this into the hole. I'm going to put a piece of tape, come on, focus. I'm going to put a piece of tape over all those pins so as I'm moving things around and shoving it back through the shaft, those pins do not get damaged. Next, I'm going to feed the LiveScope cable in first because it's the biggest grommet or biggest plug, and then I will add the rest of the wires. I'll add the transducer wire next along with the power cables, and I'll send it through as an assembly. Everything was long enough to where you had plenty of slack at the top so you can stagger it out a little bit. Not a lot though, power wires only had a couple inches. You might be able to force it, but it was 2 seconds to take out the other side plug, so that's what I did. Alright, now that we're ready for the trolling motor head again, you need to replace these two gaskets. The blue one, very obvious, and the black one right there. The kit comes with both of those. Make sure you blow out all the bolt holes because there is probably Loctite residue in there. And then when you are getting ready to put the new gaskets on, included is some grease or compound with the kit, and you're going to want to line that around the outside for the black one and then put a little in the blue groove. They give you plenty, don't be stingy. For the blue one, there is little alignment tabs to show you where it goes in the front corners right at the tip of my finger. You can barely see it. Now, using your toolbox or your buddy, position the trolling motor head unit so that you can get the cables to rotate in there. When you're getting ready to put the cables through, run the LiveScope cable all the way through, all 6 feet of it or whatever, so you can get to the other side. That'll really help pulling the wires through. Then tape the transducer wire on, a couple wraps, and then shortly right behind it, kind of tuck those other wires in right behind the transducer and kind of make a helix so it's all nice and tight. There's not a lot of slack in there, but by putting that LiveScope through first, it gives you something to pull on rather than having to push it from the back end. So how I did mine the second time, and it worked a little bit better. Next, you're going to want to take off your cable grommet off the GT56 wire and get this good and cleaned up and re-greased. Next, find your bolt kit and get your bolt assemblies built up to match that washer, then little O-ring. So we come back to the trolling motor head, and then we basically redo everything that we undid at the beginning. So red to red, black to black, orange to orange, this plug in and zip tie it. All right, kind of skipped way ahead, feeding the wires through and getting that motor into position by yourself is an absolute bear. Ended up calling in reinforcements from the wife to come and help pull the wires through. Definitely recommend getting your LiveScope wire all the way through to where you can see the plug before you start feeding all of the power wires, transducer wires, and I'm calling it the Ethernet wire to the motor, control cable, whatever you want to call it. So make sure you use Loctite on the 6 bolts on top and that you torque them per the specs in the manual. Assembling the LiveScope mount. You got the, on the back side here, you've got the adapter bracket that goes from your trolling motor to the LiveScope brackets itself, and that locks in on a little keyway right there. It can only go in one way depending on which side you're putting the transducer on. And then depending on which transducer you have, be it the 3462 combo or the LVS 32, they give you 2 different little wafer chips here that you gotta peel a piece of sticky off the back and put on. Since this is a 34, we obviously put the 34 one on. And then you got your typical marks for forward, down, and landscape mode, perspective mode. So that was pretty cut and dry. One thing that was kind of a bear, I wish I could have got it on camera, but it was just too much to do with holding a cell phone and doing it. The plug back here definitely wants to cross thread, so I took my time, and you have to make sure to get that in. Otherwise, you'll be calling Garmin and down. So we come back to the trolling motor head, and then we basically redo everything that we undid at the beginning. So red to red, black to black, orange to orange. This plug in and zip tie it. Once you're done with that, pop the square plug out of the bottom of the head and route your cable through. Pull all your cable through until it's tight. I'll give you as much slack as possible. Then Garmin includes a grommet that you'll put in to hold the cable and keep everything watertight. There she is, all the way installed. Got to secure a little bit more here after I run everything down through this grommet to the black box. Keep in mind, you are eating up a lot of cable. You got 6 feet on the 75-inch getting eaten up through there. Another probably 9 feet coming down here. So you're eating up 15 feet of cable as you install this on the trolling motor. So depending on where your black box is, might be worth ordering the LiveScope extension. On the mount itself, I left probably a touch too much extra cable, but this will give it room to move around and easily adjust. One thing I don't really care for is the angle on the transducer. I think that was kind of a miss on Garmin's take. So if you rotate it 1 click over, it's off the other direction. So any aftermarket companies that do this type of stuff, definitely open the door here. I think it works good for your perspective mode, which is built into this bracket. No notch to show where they want it to be, but I mean, I think that lines up pretty good, and it is angled down for perspective mode, which is what you want. So I think that was a win there. I don't personally use perspective mode a lot, so I'd rather have my forward mode be spot on than perspective mode. So there you have it. Install on a Garmin Kraken with the new LiveScope bracket and full integration. Should be pretty nice on the water. So what do I think of this overall? I think the installation by yourself is not that fun. I think it's probably a 2-3 hour job by yourself. Maybe if you have a little better shelf to store the trolling motor head on while you're doing this, it might make life a little easier, but it's depending on your boat, you might be 4 or 5 feet above your head or chest level at any rate. So keep that in mind. If you enjoyed this or it helped you install, please throw us a like and maybe share this video to your buddies, help them out. Thanks. bye.